What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today is the day of the long-awaited coaching analysis and improvements for the defensive side of the ball. Like I said in the last video, Ron is going to be on both sides of the ball because there's things that Ron had to improve on the offensive side. There's also things that Ron needs to emphasize and focus on the defensive side. So I'm going to, before I even go any further, I'm just going to sit up here and say that there's going to be a lot of things that all of you agree with me on. There's going to be some things that some of you won't. But understand this. These are the things that need to happen for us to be a Super Bowl caliber defense and at the same time a Pro Bowl defense. We need to work on these things that's going to make us better and at the same time improvements that need to happen. So now I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start with Ron. Ron needs to communicate more when Jack is trying to get a play in. The reason why I say that is because the reason we lost to the Giants both times had a lot to do with the fact that when Jack Del Rio would lower his head, the Giants would immediately go and snap the ball. They were always they always had a way of knowing Jack was calling the play in. And I think they used his telltale all the time, where Jack would look down at the play the play card. So each time Jack would look down at the play card, they were snapping the ball. And that's why a lot of times we saw the players out of position or seemed like they weren't really sure what was going on, was because they didn't get the whole play call in. So with that, Ron is going to have to help Jack with that. Ron is going to have to scream out, "Hey Jack, they're up at the line." You know, let him know what's going on, because if he's looking down to try to get the play in and they're snapping the ball before he's already completely got the play in, the defense is going to kind of look kind of weird and off and shaky. And with that, they have to go ahead. It has to be a thing where Ron lets Jack know what's going on in the game while he's calling the plays. Next, Ron needs to not feel that he's stepping on Jack's toes. What I mean by that is that there were times where you saw Ron Rivera wince when a certain play was called. And I don't know if he ever vocalized to Jack that he felt that another play was better there than the play that Jack ran. I think that for both of them, they have like a lot of respect for each other. Ron has a lot of respect for Jack, and Jack has a lot of respect for Ron. But I also feel that there are times where Ron may take the back seat because he doesn't feel like he wants to feel like he's disrespecting Jack. And I think that Ron needs to be more vocal with Jack, especially if there's a thing where it's like, "Hey Jack, what you think, what you running here, or what you think about, what are you thinking right here?" You know, just to kind of open up that line of communication, because I do feel that there are times that Ron sees certain things and he would run a different play than what Jack ran. And I think that that level of, even though they still have respect for each other, I still think that there's times where Ron needs to say, "Hey Jack, you know, what's going on here? What are you thinking here?" Just so they can be on the same page when it comes to play calling. Because again, there were a lot of times where you saw Ron kind of wince when Jack called a certain play and he was like, I didn't think that one was going to work, and it didn't work. So I think he needs to not feel like he's stepping on Jack's toes just because he's offering a different approach to the defense. Next is Jack Del Rio, defensive coordinator. It's not a lot he needs to do, but there are things that he definitely needs to do. He needs to demand more out of the defense. Like, there are times, like in my personal opinion, I think that there are players he can actually absolutely get more out of. Jimmy Moreland. He can get more out of Jimmy Moreland. Not only that, a lot of these guys that is currently on this team are used to being coached hard. The Alabama guys, they're used to being coached hard down there in Alabama. You're talking about Chase Young is used to being coached hard. Montez Sweat at Mississippi State, their defensive coach, he's a tough guy. He's used to being coached hard. There are a lot of guys that on this team that are used to being coached hard, which means that it's okay to get on them when they're making vital mistakes, or if you need them to do more, force them to do more or emphasize them doing more. Because the more and more you sit up there and don't push them, the less you're going to get out of them. Like I said, all these guys are used to being coached hard, and they do their best work when they're coached harder. And that, to me, is something Jack needs to do. The next thing he needs to do, he needs to let his linebackers audible into better plays. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with trust. But I think that the reason we saw such poor play out of Jon Bostic had a lot to do with Jack not really being comfortable with giving him the ability to say, hey, you know, I think they're going to go with this. I think we should call this. And then let him do his thing. There are linebackers that actually do this. Seattle, and Bobby Wagner in Seattle, he does this a lot. Like, he's given complete leeway to do this. The guy that's in, Jesus Christ. In New England, Jesus Christ, I can't think of his name. But he's given a lot of leeway to be able to basically audible plays and things like that. So for me, I feel that he has to, again, it does come in with trust, which I understand. But I think he needs to let Jon Bostic or whoever is playing that middle linebacker position, give them the option of being able to audible out of plays or call in a play that they think may be better for what's going on the offensive side. Last but not least, and this is one that he's gone on record and saying that he will do, and that's dial up the blitzes. He said that, you know, he with us getting William Jackson, he felt that he can now dial up the blitzes. I personally feel he could have been dialing up the blitzes even with Ronald Darby, because again, it's not like Ronald Darby was a hindrance. Ronald Darby was playing very well. He should have been dialing up the blitzes the whole time. So, but again, the fact that he's admitted to the fact that he wasn't dialing up the blitzes and that he will be doing that, that for me is a very good thing. But I want him to emphasize that, because there were a lot of games where we could have been blitzing people and he chose not to blitz them. So with that, he has to dial up the blitzes. Next in line is our defensive line coach, Sam Mills III. Now, Sam Mills, I have to say this, has done an amazing job with the defensive line. He's got the most out of this defensive line. Even when we thought that there was not more to give, he showed that he can also develop these guys as well. I mean, the steps that we saw Montez Sweat take was incredible. Also, even with the way that he got Chase Young up to speed, incorporated in the game plan, it just phenomenal. Also, we're talking about the fact that last year, Washington had 47 total tackles. Of that 47, 34 came from the defensive line. That is a staggering stat to know that your defensive line is getting the majority of the sacks versus your linebackers and your secondary, which is something we've been accustomed to. But the fact that we're seeing this type of production out of this defensive line all goes to Sam Mills III. He's done an incredible job. Now, the downside, he has to emphasize stopping the run. Last year, we were getting gashed. Not only by running backs, but by quarterbacks as well. Quarterbacks, for some reason last year, felt that they could run on us at will. Like, it didn't even matter. They could just constantly run on us. Sam Mills has to make sure that he emphasized stopping the run. Because, again, we can't go into the next season with this huge hole of us not being able to stop the run. I mean, you're talking about last year, we saw more quarterbacks run on us than any other year possible. We're talking about, we saw Kyler Murray run on us. We saw the Browns didn't run much on us, but Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb chewed us up. Lamar Jackson chewed us up. Daniel Jones chewed us up. If y'all can remember when Joe Burrow got hurt, he was running the ball. So the fact that so many of these quarterbacks feel that they can run on us, that's not a good thing. And especially with the guys that we're going to be seeing this upcoming season, a lot of these guys like to run around. You're talking about, we see Russell Wilson again this year. We see Jalen Hurts again this year. We see Patrick Mahomes, who likes to scramble, Aaron Rodgers, who likes to scramble, Josh Allen, who likes to run. We got a lot of guys this upcoming season that are guys who do like to run. And if we don't make an emphasis of stopping the run, it's going to be a problem. So basically, stay the course when it comes to the pass rush, but emphasize stopping the run. Next is the linebackers coach, Steve Russ. Steve Russ needs to show that he knows how to coach. Steve Russ last year, well, let's go into Steve Russ history. Steve Russ was the linebackers coach in Carolina, but I think that what happened with him in Carolina is that his ability not to coach and develop was masked by the talent of Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. Sometimes when you have guys that are supremely talented, it can cover up the fact that you're poor at coaching a linebacking group or even developing a linebacking group. And to me, I feel that last year showed that maybe he doesn't know how to coach as much as you want him to, because again, currently right now, his group is the Achilles heel to this defense. And if he doesn't get this group on board like they should be, there's no reason to have him here. Because to me, he's not getting the most out of these guys. I mean, you're talking about last year, we saw Kevin Pierre-Louis come on early in the season, but then later in the season, he tailed off even to the point where he was no longer starting. Like, that's crazy to have a guy start off so well at the beginning and tail off all the way at the end. Yeah, he got injured, but it still didn't make up for the fact that he tailed off drastically. You're talking about the fact that Cole Holcomb went from the weak side to the strong side, back to the weak side, back to the strong side. He was all over the place. So there were times where Cole Holcomb, who is a stellar linebacker, was was in bad positions and stuff like that, and had to make up certain things with his speed and his ability to adjust to certain things. So again, you're talking about, Cole Holcomb had to use his talent to mask some of the issues he was going through. Khaleke Hudson, I like what he did coming into it, but again, you're talking about he only saw like a few little bits of action. And even with that, he still didn't look like he was ready to be a linebacker. Now we have Jamin Davis. Again, we're going to have to see if Steve Russ can actually develop guys, or will we get a heavy dose of John Bostic next year, and John Bostic having to rely on his talent, which is diminishing, to make plays and stuff like that. So with that, Steve Russ, he has a big year to prove himself. Last but not least is defensive backs coach Chris Harris. And I got a thing on here for him. And that's stay the course, because the development that he did with Cameron Curl and the play that he got out of a lot of these guys in the secondary, to me, he did an amazing job. He needs to stay the course, but he needs to be more vocal. The reason I say that is because it's hard for me to believe that Chris Harris was the guy who felt that Troy Apke, one, deserved to start, and two, should have kept playing for 4 games. Should have been starting for 4 games. I don't feel that Chris Harris really vocalized the fact that he felt that Troy Apke was really not that good. And I think that if he would have vocalized that more, I think Ron and Jack would have respected it more, and they would have sat up there and not even tried the Troy Apke experiment in the beginning, because so many of us knew that Troy Apke was a disaster even when he was with Jay's group. So it was just one of those things where, you know, I honestly feel that if Chris Harris vocalized himself more, we would not have seen Troy Apke at all last season. And for that, but again, I love what he did with the development of guys. I mean, you're talking about, we saw Landon Collins play way better. We saw the incredible development of Cameron Curl from game to game. He was improving each game, and then when the second half of the season came around, he ended up being one of our best defensive players. And not only that, you're talking about what we got out of Deshazor Everett, the fact that Ronald Darby, who was a cast-off, came here and played extremely well. So again, I love the way he's developing and coaching these defensive backs. But again, like I said, he needs to be more vocal with Ron and let them know, hey, look, this guy's not that good. Let's push him on special teams. I don't agree with him being a starter, you know, and just vocalize that. Vocalize that a little bit more, because again, as a former NFL safety, I'm pretty sure that he knew that Troy Apke was not as good as they thought he was going to be. Now, that is the end of the defensive side on what my coaches' analysis and where they need to improve. And that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.